It's interesting that some of the mistakes that are made now in the PR business are some of the mistakes that were made 5, 10, 20 years ago. They're just magnified by technology. And technology will do more to embarrass you to a larger audience than possible. And before I go into various ways of how that happens, I'll share a story about how something happened to me accidentally. I was visiting a family member in the hospital. While I was there, I was looking on my cell phone and I was reading some stories, and I needed to go and get some lunch. And then I took my phone and I put it in my pocket, got in the car, and I drove off. One of the websites I was looking at was serving up an ad, and apparently I rear-end clicked something, and my entire Google address book was emailed a link. And that included a lot of security reporters who then wanted to report about how I had just been spammed. So you've got to be careful of the technology you're using and make sure it doesn't kick you in the rear end, literally. But on other fronts, you really just have to be paying attention to what's going on. You have to make sure that you're focused on the journalist. You have to make sure those relationships are solid and trusted. So when you go through, and no matter what media tool you're using, don't assume that just because a category is clicked, that that journalist is going to care. So if you start first with the news that you're releasing, you need to decide where it's going, how it's going out. Is this, 128 characters, or is it a few paragraphs? And then pick your targets. Is it really newsworthy? And again, if it's not newsworthy, you need to make sure you're pushing back on whoever it is that's telling you to put out news. And so if it's not really news, that you find another way of getting the information out there, because sometimes a lot of executives just want it out there, whether it's on social media, LinkedIn, or a press release. They're not really defining the difference. They just want it out there. So make sure that when you're communicating to journalists that it's about real news, and it's about news that the journalist is most likely going to care about. It's okay to have a mistake, but make sure it's something that they care about. The other thing, and the biggest, and where especially as a newcomer to the business, when you start using new tools, test out the distribution before you send it out. Send it to yourself, send it to some other folks in the office. Make sure that it looks right before you send, and that you don't accidentally send out something that has a really bad mistake. Now, that counts whether you're using something more expensive like a Cision product, or you're doing a simple database to email merge using Outlook, which has come a long way in the last many years. And you can do email merges using Outlook and Excel and Access, for the cost of the tools that you've already put on your system. So it doesn't always have to be a Vocus or a Cision or another company's solution. You can do it right there on your own machines. But make sure that when you send out that message, that you've really targeted the journalist, you've really honed down your message, and that you've reduced the errors. That, by far, is the biggest mistake that most people make.